Most people think that power in public belongs to the loudest voice. But Machiavelli would disagree. True control, he said, lies in the ability to make others feel small without ever appearing to try. The moment you raise your voice, you've already lost the frame, because when you react loudly, you've accepted that someone else set the tone. Power never reacts, it redirects. Think about it. The loudest man in a room is rarely the one being listened to. He's trying to prove something. He's signaling weakness disguised as strength. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. When you're disrespected in public, the most dangerous move is to fight back emotionally. You let them define the arena, and you start playing their game. The goal, instead, is to make them realize, silently, that they've crossed a line they'll regret crossing. That's what shutting down disrespect without raising your voice really means. When someone publicly disrespects you, the natural impulse is to defend, to explain, to retaliate. But every one of those reactions gives away control. The moment you try to fix their perception, you've already accepted that their opinion matters. Machiavelli would tell you, never chase dignity, make others protect it for you. There are two types of people when insulted in front of others. The first gets emotional. They argue, defend, or plead for fairness. The second pauses. They look directly at the offender, not with fury, but with a calm that unsettles everyone watching. That pause says more than any defense ever could. It says, I'm not playing your game. I'm above it. Machiavelli called this psychological reversal, the art of turning disrespect into reflection. When someone disrespects you publicly, their goal is to make you look smaller in the eyes of others. They're trying to take status by forcing you to react. So, your counterattack is to deny them the reaction completely. You don't argue. You don't explain. You let the silence expose them. Because here's the truth. Disrespect collapses under silence faster than it does under argument. Imagine you're in a meeting. Someone mocks your idea in front of everyone, trying to make you look incompetent. The average person will scramble to defend their point. But you, if you understand Machiavellian control, you pause. You look at them as if you're observing a child trying to impress adults. Maybe you even smile slightly. That single expression changes the dynamic. The room's attention shifts. Now, they look like the insecure one. You've turned the mirror around. Silence, when used intentionally, isn't weakness, it's accusation. People project meaning onto silence, and the longer it lasts, the more uncomfortable they become. The disrespecter starts wondering if they went too far, if others are judging them, if you're planning something worse in response. They spiral into their own insecurity while you remain composed. That's not just self-control. It's psychological dominance. Machiavelli believed appearances were everything. He'd say, your tone, your posture, and your restraint matter more than your words. In public, every reaction is a message to the audience, not the offender. You're not performing for the person who disrespected you, you're performing for the spectators. Because they decide whose power they recognize. If you lose composure, they side with the aggressor. But if you stay calm, collected, and quietly assertive, the crowd's respect shifts instantly. They see you as the adult in a room full of children. There's a subtle way to speak that reclaims power without ever raising your voice. You lower it. When your tone drops instead of rises, people lean in instead of tuning out. Machiavelli's rule was clear. The strong speak less and softer, forcing others to adapt. You never chase to be heard. You make them earn your words. When you do decide to speak after being disrespected, keep it surgical. Never explain, never justify. State facts like you're correcting a child who made a small mistake. For example, instead of, that's not true, I actually did, say that's incorrect, and then stop. No emotion, no elaboration. Your confidence is in the brevity. Long explanations sound like defense. Short sentences sound like authority. Another Machiavellian tactic is redirection. Instead of confronting the disrespect directly, turn it into an observation that embarrasses them without appearing aggressive. Say someone interrupts you mid-sentence to show off. You could respond with calm irony. I'll let you finish. You seem to have something important to say. That single line is polite on the surface, but it stings. It exposes their need for attention to everyone watching. You've humiliated them without crossing the line of open conflict. That's power with precision. Remember, Public settings amplify everything. The key isn't to overpower someone, it's to make them realize they've overstepped. Disrespect only thrives when it gets oxygen. You take the air out of it by staying unshaken. Because nothing intimidates a disrespectful person more than realizing they can't get a reaction from you. That's the one thing they crave most, to see their words land. When they don't, they crumble. And here's the thing people often misunderstand. Staying calm doesn't mean being passive. Machiavelli would never endorse passivity. He'd tell you to weaponize calmness. Calmness used strategically is unnerving. It makes people question your next move. It creates suspense. The other person starts to feel the invisible tension that you control entirely. You've stopped playing defense and shifted to offense without moving an inch. That's the difference between reacting emotionally and responding strategically. One is about pride, the other is about control. Pride is fragile, it needs validation. Control is silent, it just is. When you respond without raising your voice, you're sending a signal. I'm not affected by this. And in the eyes of everyone watching, that's authority. That's what Machiavelli called the illusion of invulnerability. People respect what they can't shake. There's a psychological phenomenon behind this too, called dominance by composure. Humans instinctively read calmness as confidence. It's hardwired into us. In nature, the predator doesn't flinch. It moves slow, deliberate, unbothered. The prey panics, makes noise, overreacts. That's how you spot who holds power in any environment. When you remain composed in the face of public disrespect, you silently declare yourself the predator in the room. But composure isn't just about silence or tone, it's about energy. Machiavelli understood that energy is the real battlefield. The person who keeps their emotional energy steady controls everyone else's. When someone disrespects you publicly, they're trying to transfer their chaos to you. If you accept it, they win. If you stay centered, they drown in their own projection. It's that simple and that hard. So next time someone tries to embarrass you publicly, remember, your goal isn't to win the argument. It's to win the perception. That's where real influence lives. The one who looks like they're in control is in control. You don't have to prove dominance. You just have to hold it longer than they can perform theirs. People always reveal their weakness faster when confronted by silence, precision, and unshakable presence. And that's the first principle of shutting down public disrespect without raising your voice. Control the energy, not the argument. Because once you control the energy, the argument dissolves on its own. The aggressor starts feeling isolated, foolish, overexposed. They'll either backpedal or double down in desperation, and both outcomes work in your favor. One exposes their insecurity, the other gives you the moral high ground. This is what Machiavelli meant when he said, "It's better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But fear here isn't about intimidation, it's about emotional steadiness. People fear what they can't manipulate. When you stay calm while they lose composure, that fear creeps in. They realize they're not dealing with an ordinary person. They're dealing with someone who doesn't react like the rest, someone they can't control through disrespect. And once they realize that, the power dynamic is permanently altered. There's a moment, right after someone disrespects you, that decides everything. It's that brief pause, 1 or 2 seconds, where your body wants to react but your mind can still intervene. That's where power lives. Most people waste it by rushing to speak, trying to repair their image or explain themselves. But Machiavelli would use that moment as a weapon. He'd let silence cut through the noise like a blade. Because when you delay your reaction, everyone around you begins to anticipate it. That anticipation gives you control over the room. In those seconds, you're doing something subtle yet profound. You're forcing the offender to think. You're not matching their emotion, you're making them face their own. They begin to wonder, did I go too far? Or what is he about to say? Their confidence trembles while yours solidifies. That's what composure does. It transfers uncertainty back to them. Most people think dominance is about aggression. Machiavelli knew it's about contrast. If they act emotional and you act measured, you become the mirror that exposes them. The crowd sees the difference immediately. They don't need to be told who's right, they feel it. Public disrespect is never about the insult itself, it's about perception management. The one who manages perception better wins. Now here's where most fail. They confuse staying calm with staying quiet forever. No, calmness is your preparation. Precision is your counterattack. When the moment feels right, speak, but not from emotion. Speak from calculation. Every word should serve one purpose, to dismantle their position without giving away your energy. Say you're in a group setting and someone makes a passive-aggressive remark about you, something like, "Well, some people take forever to make decisions." Instead of rushing to defend, you look at them with a faint half smile and respond, "You're right, some people think before acting." Then you turn your attention elsewhere. You've returned their jab, but you didn't swing. You didn't argue, you reframed. That's how Machiavellian control feels, light in effort, heavy in impact. The second principle is that you must own the frame of the interaction. The frame is the invisible context that decides who's leading and who's following. The disrespecter wants to pull you into their frame, chaotic, emotional, reactive. Your job is to refuse it completely. You don't just reject it, you make their frame look foolish. If they're sarcastic, you respond with curiosity. If they're loud, you lower your tone. If they demand validation, you withhold it. Each move tells the audience, "I'm not entering your world, you're entering mine." There's something psychologically magnetic about unshaken confidence. People can feel when someone is grounded. Machiavelli would say, "Make your calmness a spectacle. Let people see that you're unbothered even when attacked." That's how reputations are built. Because when others watch someone disrespect you, they're secretly studying how much they can get away with. If they see you break, they'll test you too. But if they see you unmoved, they'll start policing their own behavior around you. And here's where subtle dominance comes in. You don't need to win every battle. You just need to make people think twice before engaging you again. That hesitation is respect in disguise. Machiavelli never wanted constant confrontation, he wanted deterrence. The best kind of victory is when no one dares to challenge you openly again. But let's talk about something deeper, tone control. You can destroy someone's confidence with tone alone. When you're calm, your tone should sound effortless, slow, measured. The faster someone speaks, the more they reveal anxiety. Slow speech signals confidence because it suggests certainty. You're not afraid of silence. You're not in a rush to be understood. The more they escalate, the more deliberate you become. That mismatch exposes them. They look frantic. You look in command. Machiavelli understood that the battlefield of respect is psychological, not verbal. Words are tools, but presence is the weapon. When you're disrespected, your physical composure sends a louder message than your argument ever could. Keep your shoulders relaxed, your breathing steady, your eye contact calm but direct. You're not challenging, you're observing. People instinctively interpret that as dominance. You're not proving, you're evaluating, and when others feel they're being evaluated, they become cautious. That's what you want. There's another tactic Machiavelli would advise. Make the aggressor question their social image. Public disrespect is meant to gain approval from the audience. So you flip it. You make them feel their attempt backfired socially. For instance, if someone mocks you sarcastically and people laugh, you can simply look at them and say, "You really needed that laugh, huh?" in a neutral tone. That line shifts attention away from you and onto their insecurity. You've reframed them as someone needing validation rather than someone displaying dominance. The laughter dies quickly after that. But here's the subtlety. Don't deliver it with anger. Deliver it with mild pity. Machiavelli taught that pity can humiliate more deeply than rage. Because when you pity someone, you're declaring them beneath you without saying so. You're showing you expected nothing better. That tone of quiet disappointment is lethal. It dismantles their power without confrontation. Understand this. The calm response is not about suppressing your emotions. It's about converting them into strategy. Anger becomes timing, hurt becomes insight, disrespect becomes theater. The person who wronged you expects chaos. You give them choreography. You transform what was meant to destabilize you into a display of control. That reversal is pure Machiavellian elegance. Another important rule, don't overplay dignity. Some people, in trying to appear unbothered, become robotic or arrogant. That's not strength. That's insecurity dressed up as stoicism. True control has warmth. It has a touch of humor, even irony. You can laugh softly, nod, and move on. The point is to make the situation seem beneath your concern. that makes others admire your self-assurance rather than fear your coldness. Machiavelli's brilliance lay in understanding that respect and fear can coexist when used wisely. You want both in balance, and when you leave the scene of public disrespect, never linger. Don't stay to rehash or prove anything. Leave with the same composure you entered with. The aftermath is where reputation solidifies. People will remember how you exited. If you look shaken, they'll assume defeat. If you look indifferent, they'll whisper admiration. The final impression always outweighs the first insult. This is where Machiavellian counterattack becomes an art form. You don't need to fight publicly. You let public perception fight for you. Because once people see that you cannot be shaken, they'll start defending you before you even speak. You'll become that quiet figure others respect instinctively, the one who doesn't talk much, but when he does, people listen. And that's the real victory, when your silence commands more attention than their noise ever could. Because in Machiavellian terms, the highest form of power isn't control over others, it's control over yourself, in front of others. Once you master that, disrespect doesn't hurt, it just exposes who's beneath your level. Here's what most people never realize. Public disrespect doesn't just test your pride, it tests your psychological structure. It reveals whether you've built your sense of worth internally or borrowed it from others. The ones who explode, defend, or over-explain are borrowing. They're dependent on the crowd's validation to feel strong again. But Machiavelli would tell you, the true counterattack begins when your confidence no longer depends on external repair. Because the moment you stop needing to be understood, no one can embarrass you. That's why the calm response isn't just a tactic, it's a reflection of self-mastery. When you've trained your mind not to need the last word, you've already risen above the game. The disrespecter wants a reaction because that's how they prove to themselves that they matter. They need to see their insult land to feel powerful. But when it doesn't land, when it just dissolves into your stillness, they're left confronting their own insignificance. You've handed them the mirror they were trying to hold up to you. Machiavelli would call this strategic non-engagement. It's not passivity, it's restraint weaponized. By not engaging in the drama, you create an aura of mystery. People start to wonder, what's going on in his head? Why isn't he reacting? That uncertainty is the reaction. They start reacting for you. The offender begins to backtrack subtly, making jokes to diffuse tension, while others start defending you subconsciously just to restore balance. You've controlled the entire narrative without saying a word. There's something profoundly disarming about a person who refuses to descend. When you respond calmly, you're not ignoring the disrespect, you're announcing that it's irrelevant. You're implying without words, your opinion doesn't have the power to alter my state. That's the essence of psychological dominance. Not force, not retaliation, but complete emotional autonomy. But let's take it a step deeper. Sometimes silence isn't enough. Sometimes the environment demands a statement, something short, sharp, and unforgettable. That's where Machiavellian rhetoric comes in. You don't respond to defend yourself, you respond to redefine the conversation. For example, imagine someone mocks you in a group. Everyone's waiting for your comeback. You pause, glance around, then say, "You must really want attention today." Not loud, not angry, just observant. You've transformed their attack into an admission of insecurity. The crowd instantly reinterprets what just happened. You didn't retaliate, you relabeled. That's reputation control in real time. Or, if someone keeps trying to provoke you repeatedly, you can use dismissal, not debate. The kind that feels casual but final. Say they say something cutting, you simply reply, "You've said that before," and move on. No tone, no emphasis, just indifference. The subtle message, "You're predictable, and I've stopped finding you interesting." That kills their momentum faster than confrontation ever could. People crave attention more than victory. Take away their stage, and they have no reason to keep performing. Another layer Machiavelli would emphasize, control your facial neutrality. When someone disrespects you, your micro-expressions betray your internal state before your words do. If your jaw tightens, if your eyes narrow, if your breathing changes, they see it. That's why composure isn't only psychological, it's physical training. The way you look while being disrespected determines the power balance. A calm expression, a faint smile, Relaxed eyes, those are silent declarations that you're not emotionally reachable. And when the offender realizes they can't affect you, something fascinating happens. They start performing for the others instead. They become desperate to recover what they just lost, the crowd's approval. That's when they start over-explaining, laughing nervously, or changing subjects. And the crowd? They notice. They may not say it out loud, but they sense who just lost control. That's when you've won without victory speeches. But Machiavelli would warn you, never seek revenge in the moment. Public disrespect tempts you to restore balance instantly, but that's impatience. True revenge isn't reaction, it's orchestration. You wait, you observe, you let time expose them. Every person who disrespects you in public eventually hands you the opportunity to outclass them in silence or success. And when that day comes, your rise will humiliate them more profoundly than any words could. He'd also remind you of this. Never let the disrespect turn you bitter. Bitterness is still reaction. It's just delayed. The point of composure is not to suppress your anger, but to channel it into vision. Every time someone tries to humiliate you, you're being offered a choice to match their level or transcend it. The Machiavellian mind always chooses transcendence. You use their insult as evidence that your presence threatens them. And instead of collapsing, you solidify. You tell yourself, if my calmness provokes this much insecurity, I must be doing something right. You see, the final stage of shutting down disrespect isn't silence or wit or dominance. It's detachment. When you reach the point where you no longer feel disrespected, because you've recognized that disrespect reveals more about the speaker than the target, you become untouchable. People can still try to mock you, but it doesn't stick. You've turned your self-image into armor. And this is what Machiavelli meant by mastering appearance. You don't control people's behavior, but you control the meaning it takes on. If someone mocks you, it doesn't mean you're weak. It means they've revealed envy. If they ignore you, it doesn't mean you're insignificant. It means your presence unsettles them. Everything flips once you understand perception as your territory. That's why you never fight disrespect directly. You redirect it into reflection. Here's the paradox. The quieter your response, the louder your authority becomes. People can sense when they're in the presence of someone who doesn't flinch, doesn't chase, doesn't need. It's almost magnetic. Because deep down, everyone craves that level of control, but few achieve it. When they see it in you, they admire it, even those who dislike you. That's why Machiavelli would call restraint the most elegant form of power. It doesn't scream, it echoes. So remember this, when someone disrespects you in public, they've already declared your importance. No one tries to embarrass someone irrelevant. Their attack is proof that you matter. Don't give them the satisfaction of confirming that they got to you. Let their own need for validation reveal itself. Because in the end, they'll walk away looking desperate, while you walk away looking composed, calm, and quietly dangerous. That's the ultimate counterattack, when your stillness becomes the punishment and your dignity becomes the consequence they can't escape.